So 30 years in procurement, 17 years as a business owner. So you're the owner of Beyond Procurement.
I am, yeah.
Why did you call it Beyond Procurement?
Well, we never used to be called Beyond Procurement. We were called Meerkat Associates, actually, when we first started, which was back. We started the company on the 7th of the 7th, 2007. So we're just coming up to our sort of 17th birthday. We were called Meerkat because the idea was to get that kind of strategic view and look over everything. But back then, Meerkat wasn't as popular as with the Alexandra and everything that it was. And then we stayed as Meerkats for about 14 years, and then COVID hit. Everything crashed within a couple of months, just completely destroyed the business. There was a couple of reasons. One was COVID, other was a malicious employee. And then we sat down and thought, well, what do we want to do? What do we care about? And during that time, at 14 years, we'd run lots of projects. It wasn't just procurement that we were doing, cost saving. We always had like a green agenda behind everything, but it was always that way. It was always... we're going to save you money, and by the way, we're going to make you green as well. And we'd won several awards for doing zero to landfill communities all around the UK, and it was that we was really passionate about. So when we sat down with the team and we said, right, we're going to come back from this, and we're going to rebuild. Let's rebrand because the world has changed. Back then, people didn't really believe in climate issues, so we just switched feet. Really, and so we brought the climate issues to the forefront, and we decided, look, we've just got to go beyond the bottom line. We've got to go beyond the profit. We've got to go beyond just providing these cost savings. So we're going to go beyond procurement, and that's where it was born. So we still do the commercial for the businesses. We're still providing a commercial support for them because, to be honest, it's one of their key drivers. They won't do carbon neutrality or net zero unless there's a commercial benefit for them. So we still had to keep that there, and we wanted to show that it was still there, but we wanted to go beyond it. Sorry, it was a long answer, but it was a kind of a bit of a story.
It's a good one, though. It's the importance of renewal, isn't it? And what you're saying on rebranding there, you've got a green agenda. Of course, net zero is part of society now. There's societal expectations on things. And Beyond Procurement is that. So for some of the listeners that don't even know what net zero is, what is net zero?
Net zero, well, there's two stages really if you think about it. There's becoming carbon neutral, and then there's becoming net zero. So what you're looking to do is to remove all of the emissions, and it's not just carbon. We shorten it to carbon footprint, but there's a lot of emissions in there. But it's called CO2e, so it's the equivalent. It's just taken back to that. And what you're looking to do is to remove all of the emissions, all of the nasty stuff from your business as much as possible. There's always going to be a residual. You can't take absolutely everything out of it. So, but what you're looking to do is remove until you can't go any further. And then all you've got is that residual. And at that point, you are at net zero. And then what you can do is you can offset or double offset to be... There's different terminology. You can say carbon negative or carbon positive.
I'm just going to play devil's advocate with you here, because let's say I'm running the recruitment company down the road and we've got, 7 people, small recruitment business, 7 people in the office. What is my carbon footprint?
Well, it's not. So carbon footprint is done in 3 scopes. Right. So scope 1 is your envelope, everything that you're responsible for. So it'll be your building, your heating, your aircon, those such things. Now you might own your own building, or you might be in a serviced office, in which case it moves. Yeah. It's not your responsibility then. Scope 2 is your indirect. You're not responsible, but it's purely focused on your energy. Energy generally makes up 20-25% of a business's carbon footprint, so it's given its own scope. And then scope 3 is your supply chain and your value chain. So it's everything that comes into your business and everything that goes out, all the services and products that you produce. Now, that scope 3 is the big part of the jigsaw puzzle. And I always like to look at it like scope 1 and 2 is kind of the corners and the edges of your jigsaw puzzle. Scope 3 is all the bits in the middle. So even though you're a small business, even if you're in a serviced office, even if you're working from home, you're still going to have a scope 3. It might not be as complex as a big multinational organisation that's got offices all around the world, but you're still going to have a supply chain. So it still needs to be mapped and measured, and then look to see, well, how can I reduce what I'm, you're still going to be producing waste, you're still going to be bringing stuff in. So it can still, but you still have to measure that scope 3.
Yeah, it really does strike me as a little bit of a challenge actually here, because, even I'm learning from what you're saying already. there's an awareness and education piece that needs to really happen here.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's springing to mind is appreciation, potential lack of appreciation for, I mean, what's the consequences of not appreciating this as a society? What are the consequences?
Well, we've signed up. We never preach the moral aspects of this because people are tired of hearing it, to be honest. It's been going on for so many years. It's a bit like having the warnings on the cigarette packet. People are, they just become complacent to it. But the fact is, we've signed up.
It's worked, as less people actually smoke, but whether it's the warnings on the cigarette packet or putting the prices up on the cigarettes,
Well, that's going to be the combination, isn't it? Put taxes or put pleasure. It's always got. People will only move in society, as you know, psychologically. People only move for two reasons, don't they? Get away from pain, or towards pleasure.
But it worked on plastic bags. It worked. If I went and bought a plastic bag from the co-op on a weekend, my wife would go crazy with me, So it worked, didn't it?
But there's still a lot to do, isn't there? Because you're still coming home with all those boxes that are 2/3 full, that are just, you've been hypnotised into buying those pretty packages that are really big boxes. You're bringing all of that home. You're paying for all of that to go to the store, paying to drag all of that home. And then you're emptying it all out at home and then paying again to get rid of it, aren't we? And we do that in business. That drives me absolutely insane. But that's the things that we need to change, don't we? We've got to change our behaviours. Because as a human race,
it's education and awareness. It's an education problem.
And over the 17 years, obviously, we've seen it. When we first started back in 2007, no one believed in, there wasn't such carbon footprinting was around, but no one really. It was kind of the green agenda a bit then. We're going to make it green, but it was always seen as being more costly.
But why should I bother in my business with this? Because
we've all got to, haven't we? We've all got to, because we've signed up to the Paris Agreement, so we've committed as a nation that we're going to reduce our carbon footprint by half by 2030 and completely to net zero by 2050. We're not on target. The reason of trying to hold it to that 1.5 degrees is that's the tipping point. Probably 1 degree is probably more the tipping point, but we're trying to hold it. We're past that already. We're trying to hold at 1.5 degrees because after that, life starts to drastically change for us human beings on the planet. The water levels will rise. There'll be only areas that, certain areas that we can grow crops. Things are going to change for us. But and it's not. We always say that we're looking after the planet. The planet's fine. The planet has been around for 4.6 billion years. It's going to be around until the sun goes, which is another 3 billion years, isn't it? So it's about midlife at the moment on the planet. There's been more creatures on this planet that are extinct than now that are here. There's a cycle, and it's just us that we're trying to protect. If we don't look after ourselves here, we've got to be selfish about it. Life is going to drastically change for the humans on this. But that's the moral part of it. But businesses, that's not driving businesses. That's not driving businesses at all. I would say probably 5 to 10% at the most of the clients that we work with are doing it for the moral reasons.
5 to 10% do it for moral reasons.
Yeah, there's 3 drivers in the world at the moment with regards to climate change for businesses. There's the moral, the legal, and the commercial.
Okay, so 5 to 10% do it for moral reasons. How many do it for the legal and commercial reasons?
The rest. Most will do it, most, but I would say 80%.
Is it a split between them two?
No, it's 80% do it for the commercial reasons. And what we find, if we be really honest, is that as a business, we love to publicise and promote that we're doing all of these great things for the environment and ethical reasons. That's what we put out to the world.
Yes.
Because that's how we want to be seen. That's how we want our brand to be seen. But the reality is that they're all looking in and going, does this make commercial sense? What's the ROI on this? And they're doing it for the commercial reasons. Are they being asked to do it? Is there legislation that's forcing them to do it? Are their clients asking them to do it? Is there going to be a risk, a commercial risk to us if we don't undertake this? Is our stakeholders imposing this on us? It's the commercial reasons that's driving them. That's the pleasure and pain. It's the pain of the commercial or the pleasure of the commercial of winning more tenders. That's what's driving them, which is why we're called Beyond Procurement. So we always say we do commercially viable carbon reduction. It's not about coming in, measuring your carbon footprint, putting a load of changes, changing all of your behaviours, but affecting your business in a negative way, because people won't continue the journey. And this is not an overnight thing. And they call it the race to net zero, but it's not a race. It's a steady walk. And it's going to take many, many years to keep improving your operations and changing your behaviours and changing the culture in your organisation and embedding new technology as it comes in to reduce that carbon footprint. It's a steady walk. But people won't continue doing that if they're going, hang on, this is damaging us commercially. Yeah. There's got to be a commercial benefit, and that's what we still do. That's what that's important. That's an important driver to get people on the journey.
I interviewed a young man, an entrepreneur, and he had a garment business. He was doing gowns for award ceremonies at universities, and he said something really powerful. He said, and he's built an incredible business. He's built it to about 5 or 6 million.
Wow.
And he's got about 20% of the market share going on there. And he's got a clear niche, because everything's he's a net zero. He's
set up net zero, didn't he? Okay.
He's set up to that point, and he's brought technology into it. So there's cameras all in this, so people can get the photographs done at the award ceremonies. But he said something powerful, which was, sustainability equals profit for him in his business.
Yeah. Okay.
Because the more sustainable he got, the more his profits went up.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And the more sustainable he got, the more bids he started winning.
Yeah.
And all of his tenders he started just beating everybody. Yeah. Because of sustainability.
You're talking to my marketing team, because this is how we promote to get people. People are still in that mindset of, we've seen it, say 17 years, nearly 2 decades of seeing it, that people still think that it's going to cost them 10% to become green. Oh, it's going to cost me. We haven't got the money. And what we find is there's roadblocks out there. So there's generally 4 that they haven't got the money. First one is they haven't got the time. Generally businesses, especially small businesses. Have you ever met a business that's time rich? We're always time poor. So they haven't got the time to do this. They haven't got the internal skills. Of course not. They're not sustainability experts, and they don't have the money to invest. And then the 4th one that's come around is that they're confused. Every council's trying to do something or trying to be seen to be doing something. There's signposts absolutely everywhere. And if you go looking for help or support, you've got signposts just pointing you in every direction. And they don't know what's appropriate for them, for their business, where they are on their journey and their business type. They get very confused by it all. But they still have that mindset that actually this is going to take up all my time. It's going to be really costly, and I'm going to have to invest in new technology. But the reality is what we're looking to try and do is, firstly, get rid of all the waste that's in your business to start with, and change those behaviours. Coming in, switching all the lights on, those little tiny changes make really big differences. And what you're looking to try and do is reduce the amount of energy that a business is using. Of course, it's the whole scope 2. Reduce the amount of waste that they're producing, reduce the amount of water that they're consuming. And what happens then? Well, you're reducing the carbon footprint, obviously, but you're bringing down the costs. If you're not paying for it, then so costs and carbon footprint can be intrinsically linked. And that's what it's about. It's about coming in, measuring your carbon footprint and doing a baseline, looking to see, well, what can I do? You don't have to go, put electric vehicles in, LEDs, solar panels. They're all there. The technology's all, around you. But it's about changing your behaviours, changing your operations, and just having a good look at your business. And just, we're nuts, as I say. We bring all that waste in, and we spend again to take it all the way out again.
That whole electric vehicles, though, and the solar panel thing, I mean, that's a good thing for some businesses if that's right for them. They've got a team that could be using electric vehicles. It's tax efficient.
Yep,
it's profitable.
But what it's just got to be is appropriate for your business. Now, obviously we're advocates for bringing in new technology, but it's got to be appropriate. If you're a taxi firm, you're not going to be bringing in all electric vehicles, are you? Because 4 hours a day you'll be on the roadside charging everything up. It's just got to be appropriate for you. But as technology, you can put little trackers on your fleet, and then it can map what journeys and everything that you do, and say, well, actually, this vehicle is appropriate for an electric vehicle. And they're improving, aren't they? And there's new technology that's coming in, and there's new infrastructure. It's a little bit behind. We need to invest a lot more in all of this. But yeah, you're looking at what can you do as a business, what's appropriate for your business, not damaging it. We always say there's nothing more green than a business that switched all the lights off, because you're over-investing in new technology and for the right reasons. But it's about doing what's right for your business, but and reducing your carbon footprint in that steady, sustainable way.
So a business that, let's say, owns the premises, is solar a good option for them?
Yeah, if you own your own premises and you've got a roof that can take solars, then yeah, solar and battery powered. And even if you can't afford to do it, there's other ways in doing it. You can rent your roof out and you do purchase agreements. There's people that we're talking to that have got land and they can't develop the land. Well, you could put a solar farm there and use that their own, you can have a solar farm and then they can use that back in their buildings. So yeah, solar's great, isn't it? It's not quite free energy, but it's about as close as we've got at the moment.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, as long as you invest in the infrastructure.
Yeah, and that's improving as well, isn't it?
But look, the 4 things that you mentioned there, not got time, not got the internal skills, not got the money to invest, and confused. Ultimately, they're all excuses, yeah? Well, they are. Are they excuses, or everyone's got the time?
Yeah. Well,
24 hours
you're
in
a
a
coach,
day.
aren't you? Yeah.
24 hours in a day, isn't it? It's what you choose to focus on.
Yeah, it is and it depends on
what
pressure.
Why should I choose to focus on this?
Well, what's coming? You've got the green wave coming, haven't you? You're not going to be able to get away from this. And even if it's not important to you right at this very moment, we get a lot of people who say, look, we'll wait for the tsunami to hit us and then we'll deal with it. But it is coming. The green wave is coming. There's 1997, there were 60 policies and laws around the world with regards to climate change. There's now over 3,000. It's increasing. We have to do something. And businesses, what we're seeing is that the bigger organisations legally have to do this. They have to measure their carbon footprint and report on it. So those larger organisations and those government bodies, they've been doing this for a while. So they've all been turned inwards and they've been doing that scope 1 and 2, if you remember. So they've been measuring their own footprint and then been measuring their energy. Now they're ready, they're turning and looking at their scope 3, which is their supply chain. So those bigger organisations want to work with businesses that are carbon neutral, or at least have got a strategy and a plan in place. So who supplies to large organisations and who supplies to government bodies or the NHS? The NHS recently just put out a 160 question questionnaire called the Evergreen Document, asking their entire supply chain what they're doing. It's coming. Tenders, it starts at the high level. So there was a PPA and a purchase policy note, 0621, that any procurement over 5 million should have a carbon reduction plan. So that's the larger ones. But now that's starting to filter down. So you're starting to see, but same like social value or modern slavery, they start to filter through the tenders. That's what's happening now with carbon reduction. So carbon reduction is becoming a part of tenders. So what does that mean? That means that the smaller organisations out there
anyone that's tendering
is going, hang on a second, what's happening here? I've never been asked these questions before. I need to pay attention, because the larger organisations, you are part of their problem. And what are they going to do with their problem? Well, they're going to try and remove it and replace it with someone who's not a problem. They want to work with suppliers that are in line with their overall strategy. If that's not you, then it'll be someone else, won't it? And so we're seeing that. So the construction industry, for example, is a good example. They've always been at the forefront of recycling. Yeah. Now they're at the forefront of sustainability. Their projects have got to be sustainable, and the governments are ensuring that each project has got this in there. It's all part of the tendering. So now they're competing against each other. So there's peer pressure to get the competitive advantage for who is the most sustainable. So it's become a driver. So it's not legislation.
That industry is
starting to self-drive. Yeah. And that's what's happening. The pressure is driving in the industries, or it's coming from government or large organisations that are putting pressure on their supply chain. So it's not legislation so much, although as we've seen, it's almost doubling, every year. It's not the legislation that's forcing people that pleasure pain. It's the ability to win new tenders or lose existing clients it's starting to get people's attention, and it's going to become more stringent.
So we've gone through the early adopter phase already. The early adopters are already there. They're already winning work.
Well, exactly on that. Yeah.
But so are we in like this middle phase now? Because there's going to be late adopters.
But that's the majority, isn't it? Because 6 million of the businesses in the UK are SMEs. They're the smaller ones. They're the part of that supply chain. So they're catching up. The larger ones, the larger businesses, they're the ones that have had to do this by law for many years now. So now it's just that the ripples are now starting to feed out into the smaller SMEs, and they're starting to react. And we get those distress calls. They're going, "We've just been asked for this in our tender. What do we do?"
What would you say the 3 biggest benefits to me as a small business owner from going off and making some changes, making the decision to become greener, to move toward net zero, certainly towards the whole carbon footprint piece? What would you say the 3 biggest benefits are?
Cost reduction. It will improve your bottom line. Brand image.
Will it definitely improve my bottom line?
Reduce the energy that you use. Always improves your bottom line.
It does on a physical level as well, personally, isn't it? You don't need to overconsume. Overconsumption generally, doesn't lead to good things. You don't need to overconsume. It goes on a personal level for you and I eating food and this sort of thing. Overconsumption is a problem.
Yeah, well, it's us as a human race, isn't it?
So, I get it. You'll become more efficient, so the bottom line will increase because of that.
You'll improve your brand image, and you generally find that you'll be more competitive advantage in the marketplace. Your staff, you get better staff attraction, especially the younger generation. They want to work for businesses that are ethical. And also, they're your best advocates for doing this as well. You get them involved. They want to work for an organisation that's carbon neutral or net zero, don't they? We all do. Morally, we all want to do the right thing. And then you get them involved, and they'll be the ones that will find all of those little changes for you that will improve your carbon footprint, but are also going to be reducing your costs over and over. So get them involved so you get that staff empowerment, so you get better staff retention and attractiveness as well for doing things like this.
It strikes me that the biggest benefit there is I will change. This will change me, actually. Doing this, it almost pushes the value of sustainability and the green agenda up in my head, and I become a different person because of it. It's like I'm morally and ethically doing the right thing.
I wish there was more of you, James.
No, I'm just... But as you said it, that's going to be the biggest benefit to someone that does it. They will change.
I don't think there's any
better
of us
person
on this planet that doesn't want to do the right things, do we? Generally, we want to do the right thing for our business. We're just hesitant because we're worried about what commercial impact on our businesses, and that's the mindset that we're trying to change.
But is that not real? Is there a negative commercial aspect potentially in this?
Of course, there can be if you're not doing it correctly.
Does it cost me more to go green?
Depends on what it is. Generally, I'm going to say no nowadays. But it was different many years ago. If you wanted green energy, it was 10% more expensive. But it isn't now.
You pay for electric and green energy.
Yeah,
it's a lot more money, wasn't it?
It isn't now.
And,
no.
The only reason to do that would be morals at that point.
Back then, yeah.
Yeah, but it's different now.
Yeah, yeah. But it's about putting the right processes in place for your businesses at the right speed, isn't it? That's what we're trying to say. We work with businesses, and what happens is they go out and they will get their carbon footprint measured. They'll understand their carbon footprint because they need it for some kind of reporting, and then they'll pay their 10 grand for that report from one of the premium sustainability companies that are out there, and then that's it. That's all they do. That's what they do. There's no strategy or plan beyond that. They might have that, okay, we've measured our carbon footprint and we've measured it for the last 3 or 4 years. And we've come across them and you're going, well, what are you actually doing with it? They go, nothing. We're just doing it because we have to measure this. We've been asked to. So we've got a report. So that's 10 grand wasted, isn't it? So yeah, of course you can waste. But if you're using that intelligence to then improve your business operations, improve your culture, change your behaviours, you're improving the value of your business. And especially if you're looking to exit in 5 years, you've got to have this foundation in place. Yeah. Anyone buying is going, well, you've got to have a sustainability plan in place. So it makes your business more valuable as well, doesn't it?
It does. I get it. It strikes me that there's a mind shift to be had here on just becoming a more efficient person. Making a decision to be aware of consumption from a business perspective and a personal perspective. I think they go hand in hand personally. I'm into empowerment of human beings as well. And putting this up the agenda on the values hierarchy on an individual level is a good thing. Now, there are some people out there that do not believe in climate change. There are activists that will say climate change does not exist.
I always give them two responses back, because that is absolutely fine. Everybody's got their beliefs, isn't it? Our beliefs are based upon the information that we know, and if they know more than me, maybe they were able to convince me that it doesn't. But I just always go back with two arguments, really. One, if you go for a picnic with your family, do you get up and leave the mess behind? No, you don't, because it's the wrong thing to do. You just clear up after yourself. Don't focus on anything else. If your business is producing waste, it's consuming energy, just focus on that. Reduce the costs, stop producing so much waste. Just clean up after yourself. And second is, whether you believe it or not, the world does. And you, in your company, are going to be judged upon what you're doing. So your brand and your image and your company is going to be judged. So it's your choice, but you're going to be judged upon what others believe as well. But it's up to you. We get the argument all the time. One, it doesn't exist. We get some really interesting stuff come back to us that we can't produce carbon because we're made of carbon, we'll all die. Okay, people are out there. And there's the other argument, if China or other parts of the world are doing such drastic stuff and we're trying to clean up on this small island, what's the point?
Yeah, but if some of these big chains that have had to go through, big corporate giants have had to go through all of these 160 questions, or like the NHS that you're talking about, and they stop buying from China, this is changing everything.
Yeah. We've just got to put the
it
pressure
forces China to change then, doesn't it?
Yeah. That's what we've got to do, isn't it? We've got to look after our own. This world is one world, isn't it? The world's going to be fine, as we said. It's not the world. It's old.
It's us.
It's us. It's the humans that we're, but there's worlds inside it, isn't it? We've all got our own little world, and that's what we've got to concentrate on. Start with, and try and make the change in our own world. And they always say, "Be the change you want to see," isn't it? Make the change in our own little world, and then it will just put the pressure on everyone around us, isn't it? We just got to do the right thing.
Gandhi, be the change you want to see. I mean, I like the first little mini story there. If you went for a picnic with your family, you'd have an amazing day together. You'd have food together. You'd enjoy. You'd create some memories, and you would clean up after yourself. That
simple as that, isn't it? Don't think any wider or any bigger. Don't think about China, or don't think about whether this actually exists. The reality is, let's look at it. If you look at every chart that's out there, we've got tons of them. They're all going in the wrong direction, aren't they? You can see since the Industrial Revolution how much the temperature has been increasing, how much the emissions have been polluting. You can see it all, how much the water levels are rising. It's all there. I always joke. Clarkson was always smashing up caravans and saying that it never existed, and then he bought a farm, didn't he? And now look what happens. All of a sudden it's changed. He's realising, actually, there might have been something in this. And he's gone completely in the other way. So people are now not listening to idiots like that. They're listening to the scientists and the David Attenboroughs, and they're realising, actually, there is a problem here, isn't it? And we're seeing it. We see all the corals being bleached. We work, with team that go out and do all of that stuff, and you're seeing the devastation around the world. And as the reality is, if we don't do anything about this, if we just keep burying our head in the sand, us humans are going to get what we deserve, I'm afraid.
Well, on an individual level, you get what you deserve. I'm going to relate that to something else that's happening in society as well. That first thing, though, clean up after yourself, mindset number one. The second thing you said, whether you like it or not, there are currently beliefs in the world that climate change does exist.
Are going to judge you.
and you will be judged.
Yeah.
It's happened to a degree. Like, if you look at football, racism, in fans and etc., any racist chants or comments that a fan makes, it's getting picked up on. And, the next day they're on the front page of a newspaper, and on the very same day they'll lose their job, and,
it's not accepted anymore.
It's not accepted,
This is what we're trying to do, is change society's behaviours, aren't we, for the better.
Yeah, and that whole 50 pence for a bag or 20 pence for I don't even know what the cost these days, because I would never buy one. It's changed the way that people think. And it's going that way on this.
We've still got a way to go, haven't we? Because at the moment, it's not mandatory that we have to do this.
Will it ever be mandatory?
I hope so. And I think it has to, because how else are we going to drive this? The pleasure plane element. At the moment, they're doing it to get away from the risks and get towards the rewards of winning tenders. But unless there's kind of laws and legislation that is going to cause a high amount of pain.
Will it? Right, I hope so. If you had to say yes or no, at some stage it will become mandatory.
Yes. And I believe, and the rest of us in Beyond Procurement believe, that it will go like your company accounts. That there was a time in history where you didn't have to file your company accounts. Now we perfectly accept that, don't we? You go, okay, I've got to file my accounts every year, law. And there will be a fine if I don't.
It's regulated.
It's regulated. And now, what we believe in our crystal ball is that will be the same for your carbon footprint. You might even file it every year with your accounts. So you'll file your financials and you'll file your emissions.
Do you think there'll ever be any tax incentives for that? Because that would get people to do it. Let's say,
well, it's pleasure or pain, isn't it? So if you haven't got you want the combination of the two. So there is different grants and different things that are going on in the world to try and incentivise people. And we keep our eye on those around, because the problem is they're so fragmented. But there'll be suddenly a council will do, under the shared prosperity fund that's out there at the moment, they'll do an incentive for solar panels or something. So there are incentives that are out there. So there's got to be both, isn't there? There's got to be that incentive to go green and bring in that new technology, but there also needs to be the pain that if you don't do this and you're trying to hide and you are trying to avoid it, then there'll be kind of a tax or something.
Yeah, consequence to it.
Consequence, yeah, it has to be.
Yeah. So I could see that you could incentivize people to do it by giving them a bit of a tax break and pay less tax or corporation tax at the end of the year if you're down to that.
I'd vote for you.
Yeah. There we go. Well, we've got it coming up. So the current trajectory that we're on, what is the impact on human beings and business if we don't change?
Yeah.
Well, what are the impacts?
Well, climate. There's Bloomberg have bought a nice system that measures the climate impact for businesses. So they're basing their decisions of what shares to buy on what climate impact is going to have on that, potentially have on that business in the future. So it's becoming part of the strategic decisions, because they can see that you may be in certain areas where there's going to be floods or there'll be extreme weather conditions that are going to start affecting the businesses. They can see it coming. So what's going to happen? We know that's going to happen, don't we? We know that.
I don't know whether it's cognitive bias for me, but I do see it year on year, actually. Yeah. It's on the news, all different places. There's some flooding that's going on.
Well, it's more. I live in West Sussex. I have a brook next to
I
my
just
house.
don't know, though, statistically, if it's happening more now than it was in the past.
Well, I believe flooding. So. I lived in my house for 19 years, and I've never had flood warnings because I've got a brook that runs by the side of my property. I think I've had 3 or 4 this year, and probably 2 or 3 the year before. They're starting to steadily increase. I've had 2 or 3 this year already.
Is that a reality, or is that sort of precaution measures, and now we've got systems in place to start warning people, and 19 years ago we didn't have systems in place to warn people?
It's probably a combination, but certainly I've seen the water levels flooded going past my house higher than ever.
Right.
So we talk to the scientists, look, what are they telling us? They're telling us that things are increasing, the temperatures are increasing, the water levels are increasing, the extreme weather changes are increasing. Talk to the experts, they're the ones that are telling us that this is having a drastic effect on us, isn't it?
I mean, that's not the biggest thing, though. That's not the biggest. Is that the biggest thing and the biggest reason to do this? Water, or is it being morally aligned as the world? Everybody's got good moral compass inside and doing the right thing.
We'd love that was the case, wouldn't it?
Well, it's just
only 5 or 10% are doing that.
What we describe, yeah. All right, so 5 to 10% people are doing it for morals purposes,
and generally it's because it's part of their brand, or they're setting up a business and they want to set it up in the correct way to start with, because it's going to be a lot better than retrofitting everything later. So it'll be that personal, those perfect clients for us that personally give a damn, and for the right reasons, for the moral reasons they want to do it. But that's only a small percentage of who we work with. I'm being honest. I'd love it to be all of them.
So what needs to change?
Well, the way in which we're doing it, because we understand the game. We understand what's driving them. And if it's the commercial is more, then legal, and then the moral. Bring the commercial to the front then. Because what we're finding is that if they're doing it for that commercial reasons, if we can convince them, yeah, your brand image is going to improve, you're going to be winning more tenders, you'll be able to satisfy your client requirements, you get them on the journey. Once you get them on the journey and you start reducing their energy consumption and, as we say, improving their operations and reducing their costs, they kind of go, hang on a second, this is actually good for my business. This is actually, I'm seeing improvements in my bottom line, my staff morale, getting them all involved. We're bringing in biodiversity into our work. We're planting trees and we're creating shade, and staff are happier. This is actually a good thing. But you've got to get them, you've got to prime them, haven't we? And what gets them into the funnel is the commercial. So that's the leg that we can switch feet.
Profits. We're going to make more money. You're going to make more money here by doing this. So I like it, because when that one comes in and profits go up, people's beliefs begin to change, and from your experiences. And as the beliefs begin to change, we're going to get this percentage increase of people with morals. This 5 to 10%, that's going to start going up as well.
But it doesn't have to, because if we're making the change there, and we're doing a scope 1 and 2, and then moving into their supply chain, you see the ripples? We're now moving into their supply chain, and they've got to do it to maintain that client, and then their clients have got to do it. We can create it like that. So we can keep going with these commercial reasons, even if the moral reasons don't change.
It might even help on a negotiation level, commercially in business. You might be able to negotiate better and stronger with people in your supply chains because of this.
Well, you're in what respect? So because what you're looking to do is to bring in your supply chain and work with, in the same way as your clients are looking to work with carbon neutral or net zero businesses, you're looking to work with them. But what you'll be doing is reviewing the materials and the systems and the products and everything that you're using. So you're doing a kind of a review. And you know what happens when you do a review? Suddenly you've got more information and you can make more intelligent decisions. But you do that review looking at your hotspots. And yes, you can then start having those discussions with your supply chain. But what you want to be doing is removing, or at least getting them to work with you.
What impact on price in switching to a greener supplier? What's the impact on price for a small business?
You think it's the various commodities, isn't there?
Yeah.
So energy is always their biggest one. It doesn't have to be more expensive. You can bring it in. You can actually reduce, because of the buying power. And you switch in your contracts. It's a bit like share dealing. So you can get that false sort of view where you get the brokers coming in and saying, look, we've reduced your energy by 10%, but actually the prices have just come down. And as we saw, they went up 500. But that's a key driver. Let's talk about that for a second, because that's a pain point. If you're a manufacturing site and your energy prices have gone up 500%, all of a sudden you're very interested in looking at local energy generation solar panels that you've never done before, haven't you? Because the payback period have gone from 15 years to 18 months. That's what we've seen. So that's another key driver that can happen in the world. What we're looking at there is that to go green is actually, you're looking at reducing your costs, aren't you? You're becoming off grid really to a degree, and you're becoming more sustainable. And you're kind of getting rid of the risks of those fluctuations. So it's not just about the price saving of switching to green, but you're also mitigating the risks, future risks as well for your business. And so you've got that business continuity as well.
What is the future of energy prices?
If I knew that, no.
Because it's getting better now.
It's getting better. It's obviously crazy. And what happened is that everybody during COVID switched their lights off and switched their businesses off. So it was, and then what happened? And they come back, and the risk profile changed for businesses, and then new businesses especially couldn't get the supply. They didn't have a lot of choice in the market, and the prices just kept going up for not just for the changes that were going on and the effects of the world that were driving those prices up, but also the risk profiles for businesses that the providers wouldn't give them, wouldn't even price for them. They didn't want to take on those new clients, so they were stuck. Now it's kind of started to plateau and then started to drop. So we're seeing those come down. So we're hoping and we're seeing that will drop further, but you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen or what's around the corner with all of the state of the world and the wars and everything that's going on and the supplies. So looking at local energy generation is, as I say, it's not just an investment with regards to the energy prices. It's also for the stability of your business and predictability of those energy prices.
Yeah, what I'm getting from this is there are some pretty simple measures that a small business can do to start getting on the journey and moving in the right direction here. Marketing business down the road with 15 employees, they could have a number of sustainability policies. Just let's come up with this as a team. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When we come in and switch the lights on, we're only switching one light on, not all of the lights, and come up with the rules or the policies that are in place for what they're going to do in the business. And already you will start to feel and sense the difference in the business culturally.
Yeah, it's taking that pride, isn't it? But it's bringing it to the front of your mind. We know as humans, we're all busy, as we've said. There's no business that's time poor. We're all time poor, sorry. But it's bringing it to that forefront and making sure that people are actually thinking about it and coming up with those ideas. And those simple things, like we're saying, changing behaviours. We see it. You come in, you've got an office building, they all switch all the lights on, and you have to pay for that capacity, that peak capacity, because suddenly everything goes, whoosh. You have to pay for that. But actually, your usage pattern is down here. So if you just come in and change that behaviours or put PIRs in that they're only being used when they're needed, you're actually saving that money here as well. So just changing behaviours is going to save your energy uses and save your costs. But until you start bringing that to the front of your mind, isn't it? Yeah. We can't focus on everything. So you know what it is. You don't think about this table unless someone tells you to think about this table. So it's just about measuring and doing that first, and then bringing that to the front of your mind, and then you can then make those changes. Can't you use that intelligence and go, actually, let's change the way in which, let's look at our packaging, let's look at what waste we're producing, let's look at how we're using that energy. Why do we have, we could use waterless urinals. What would that do for the investment? So there's all these different things that you can look at once you've measured, but you just got to measure to do that baseline first.
It's amazing, isn't it? Like McDonald's have gone to that, yeah? The waterless urinals, and
they've been around for a very long time.
I can't remember the statistics that they're quoting, but it's an enormous amount.
We think how much they flush constantly throughout the day, and you don't. But it's just those changes. But people go, well, but we're used to having, we've always done it that way. Yeah, we've got to because of our beliefs.
Yeah, water consumption, heat. Wasted heat is huge, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's loads of different technology that's out there as well. You don't have to heat an entire room. You heat the individuals in the room, don't you? So there's the infrared heating. It's a bit like for care homes that we look at. Care homes are obviously under scrutiny for cost and for carbon reduction with the CQC framework that they've got, Quality Care Commission and the NHS. They're looking to ensure that all of their providers are carbon neutral. But the care homes, they've got the heating on, the aircon on, the windows open. There's certain elements that you can do there, but you've got to provide a level of care. But you don't have to heat an entire air within a room. You can heat the individuals in that room. So there's different technologies that you can bring in place. And it's just looking at that. Is that appropriate for us? Should we test it? Does it work? Blimey, that's just saved 40% on our heating bills. Measuring your equipment. There's measuring devices that you can put on to see whether the efficiency of that, for retail units, for example, in hospitality, they say, we can't invest in new fridges or coolers because we don't have the money. But I don't realise that the energy usage of that old inadequate kit is costing them a fortune. But you can measure, and once you've got that intelligence, you can make those intelligent decisions, can't you? It's called informed procurement. You just make those intelligent, But there's kit out there that people are just not aware that, they don't know that there's all this technology that's out there.
Okay, so I'm a small business owner, and I want to start going down this journey. What are my next 3 steps?
Measure. First, just do one.
Number 1 is measure.
Yeah. Have a look. Just measure your carbon footprint. Start with your scope 1 and 2. So it's always that's
how long will that take?
It's very quick. So if you're a small business owner and you're working from home, it'll only take a few weeks to do that because it's not the sides of the puzzle are not that big, are they?
Do I do that personally?
No, we can do that. Well, you can do. What we find is that People get a little bit confused.
Does it cost me for you to do it?
It's just time. If it's our time doing it, then there's a cost. But there is calculators. We have our own that we can provide you, and you can put the information in, and you can measure your own carbon footprint. So it's just being aware of what your carbon footprint is, and then you can make a decision on what can I do to reduce this. But you've always got to be aware first, haven't we? We've got to measure.
Of course we have. So, but once we've measured it over that couple of weeks, now we understand scope 1 and 2 over that couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, scope 1 is the envelope, as I say, everything you're directly responsible for, your offices. So you can measure that, you get that information, and then scope 2 is your energy. So grab all of that information. We generally do it for businesses. They just throw their bills at us or their spend data. And we'll start measuring that, and then we'll also start looking into their scope 3 at the same time, because that's the more complex one. And if you're working with a business that's got a vast supply chain, you need to lift the bonnet and see what it looks like. Have a look in there, and generally the rule is, as you know, like 20 of your suppliers are producing about 80% of your spend or costs, and then probably about 80% of the emissions. There can be a little bit of difference, and you start there. In scope 3, there's 15 protocols, greenhouse gas protocols, and then what you'll look and see is which ones are those that are most appropriate for your business type, and then you start lining up your suppliers against those, and then you start putting together a strategy of how you're going to measure and work with those suppliers to reduce your supply chain, reduce your emissions in the supply chain.
So is it start measuring it?
Measure,
of course,
put a plan in place.
Put a strategy in place.
Act
and then
on the plan.
Start making decisions and taking action. Yeah.
You might look at your water. You can switch to a carbon neutral water provider. You can look at your energy. If your energy's up for renewal soon.
Carbon neutral water provider, are they cheaper or more expensive?
They'll be cheaper. Generally, with the ones that we do, most people don't realise that water was deregulated in the same way as energy, so they've just stayed with the same water provider, whoever the local water provider is. When we look at this for businesses, it's a quick win for us. It's never massive, because generally businesses are not massive water users, unless you're a factory, in which case, or a hotel has got swimming pools, in which case we sort of sit upright and go, oh, this is a good one. But generally, you'll find 90% of the businesses that we work with have not done anything with their water, regardless of their size. So even if it's a large care home or a large hotel chain, we generally find that they've not done anything with their water. And then they can make about 15-20% saving on the retail element. So there's different parts of your water bill. So there's the retail part, your wholesale part, and then your waste that goes out. And the retail part is the bit that can be tendered and changed, and normally we can find 15 to 20% saving on that retail part. Quick win, easy, move you over to a carbon neutral water provider that offsets.
Beautiful. So, you know what my favourite bit of this discussion's been?
The picnic.
The picnic, 100%.
Because it hits. It's
hits.
The reality, isn't it?
100% clean up after yourself, because there's no excuse for that.
You don't need to worry about the bigger picture.
No.
Just look at your own business. Be as good as you can be in that. It's going to save you money. It's going to improve your image. It's going to get your staff involved. It's going to make your business more valuable. It's going to improve your operations. You're going to be future-proof. You're going to eliminate a lot of those risks that are coming along with the changes in legislation. Just focus on that little world. Don't focus on the big one at the moment.
Take yourself and your family for a picnic. Enjoy it. Have a blast. And clean up after yourself. Really, really powerful point. Is there any last message you want to leave the listeners with?
Don't avoid it. The green wave is coming. You aren't going to be able to avoid it. You shouldn't. We shouldn't, should we? For the moral reasons, we shouldn't. But as a business, don't think, even if it's not touching you at the moment, you think, I'll deal with it, because it's going to be like a tsunami, and you can't deal with a tsunami once it hits you. Once all of your clients and your customers, it's too late. You get ahead of it, because you can use it, as we said, to propel your business. The wave coming, hit by it or surf it. It's your choice.
Drew, thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure.
Welcome to the BizX podcast, sharing with you all of the secrets and winning formulas in both business and life, with powerful lessons from guests like Frank Bruno, Nick Jenkins, Brad Sugars, Bianca Westwood, and many, many more. Yet, the sad reality is that over 80% of you aren't subscribed yet. And if that's you, hit the subscribe button now and help us grow this channel so that you can get 1% closer every single week to achieving your dreams in both business and life. Let's do this.